Hello, and welcome to the Practical World podcast. This is your guide to actionable insights and strategies for employees and salarymen. In each episode, we cover a variety of topics, from productivity hacks and financial tips to work-life balance and personal growth. Our mission is to equip you with practical tools to enhance your professional journey. Let's dive in and discover the benefits waiting for you in the practical world. This is the real world. This is the Practical World podcast.
Ever feel like you're just stuck in a rut at work? Like you're just spinning your wheels?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think we've all been there at some point, right?
Absolutely.
Today we're going to dive into Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. To see if we can find some timeless wisdom to help us get unstuck.
Sounds good.
This book, it's almost a century old, but it's still a bestseller for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people are people. They haven't really changed that much.
Exactly. And Carnegie had a knack for understanding, human nature. He knew what made people tick, what motivates them, how to really connect with them on a deeper level.
It's psychology, basically.
Yeah. And the best part, he gives us practical, actionable advice that we can use today, right now, to improve our relationships at work, get our ideas across more effectively, and navigate all those tricky office dynamics.
Right, like how to deal with a difficult coworker.
Exactly. How to give feedback without making people defensive, how to, win people over to your way of thinking.
Or even just how to be more likable,
Yeah. Make friends, influence people. It's all there in the title.
It's all connected.
So stay tuned, because in this deep dive, we're going to unpack Carnegie's most valuable insights and give you practical tips to put them to work in your own life.
I'm ready.
Okay, so let's start with one of the biggest productivity killers in any workplace.
Okay, I'm listening.
Criticism.
Ooh, yeah, that's a tough one.
It is. And Carnegie has some really surprising things to say about why criticism almost always backfires.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
All right. Imagine this. You're on the receiving end of some harsh criticism, right? Maybe it's your annual performance review and your boss is just like ripping into you. Or maybe it's a really nasty email from a coworker. Or even just a cutting remark, like at the water cooler.
Yeah. Oof, I can feel the tension already.
Right. What's your immediate reaction? What are you thinking in that moment?
I mean, you immediately get defensive, right?
Exactly. And you know what? Carnegie compares criticizing people to kicking a beehive.
You're just asking to get stung.
Exactly. You're just setting yourself up for a negative reaction. But why is that?
I think it's because our brains are wired to protect ourselves. So when someone criticizes us, it feels like an attack, like our very survival is threatened.
Right. It's almost primal.
Yeah, it's like fight or flight mode kicks in.
Exactly. Our focus shifts from listening and understanding to just defending ourselves.
Yeah. You're not really open to feedback at that point.
No. And you're definitely not likely to change your behavior. In fact, you're probably more likely to, dig your heels in even further, right?
Absolutely. You're just proving their point.
It's like that old saying, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still.
So true.
So what's the alternative? How do we deal with issues without resorting to that, beehive-kicking criticism?
Well, Carnegie suggests we ask ourselves a really important question before we even think about criticizing someone.
Okay, I like where this is going. What's the question?
He says, what could be the reasons behind this person's actions that I might not be aware of?
Oh, I see. So it's about, taking a step back and trying to understand the other person's perspective.
Exactly. Instead of assuming they're just lazy or incompetent or whatever.
Right. You're considering their context, their challenges, maybe even, their personal struggles.
Right. You're trying to understand their motivations. Maybe there's something going on that you don't know about.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's about cultivating empathy.
Yeah. And when we approach situations with more empathy, we're less likely to jump to conclusions or resort to that harsh criticism that just makes things worse.
Instead of firing off that angry email,
Yeah.
you're taking a moment to pause, to reflect, and to ask yourself, what's the real issue here and how can I address it in a way that's constructive and respectful?
Exactly.
Okay. So we've talked about the dangers of criticism. Now let's flip the script and talk about something a little more uplifting.
All right, I could use some uplifting right about now.
Let's talk about appreciation, not just empty flattery, but sincere, genuine appreciation.
Ooh, I like that.
Carnegie was a big believer in the power of appreciation. He understood that everyone craves recognition, validation, and just that feeling of being valued.
Yeah, we all want to feel like we matter.
Exactly. And, he even gives some really fantastic examples in the book of how to express appreciation in a way that feels genuine and impactful. Like, think about a time when you went above and beyond on a project at work and your boss just said, "Good job."
Yeah, that's nice, but
It did really make you feel seen and appreciated.
not really. It felt kind of generic. Like they could have said that to anyone.
Exactly. And part of you would say that's because it lacks specificity.
Makes sense.
So instead of that generic, "good job," imagine your boss said something like, "I was so impressed with how you handled that client issue. You remained calm under pressure, and your solution was both creative and effective. It really made a difference."
Okay, now that's an awesome compliment.
Right. It's specific, it highlights your strengths, and it shows that your boss was paying attention to the details.
It makes you feel like your effort was really noticed and appreciated.
Exactly. And that kind of genuine appreciation, it goes a long way in motivating people, building trust, and fostering a more positive work environment.
Okay, I'm sold. Appreciation is key.
It is. Now let's get to the real secret sauce here. Carnegie drops this truth bomb of a quote. "The only way on earth to influence other people is to talk about what they want and show them how to get it."
Wow, that's a powerful statement.
Right. It's almost deceptively simple, but it's incredibly powerful because it taps into the core of human motivation, our desires, our aspirations, our goals.
We're all driven by what we want, even if we don't always realize it.
Exactly. It reminds us that people are inherently self-interested, not in a bad way, but in the sense that we all have our own motivations, our own needs, our own definitions of success.
Makes sense. So how do we use this to our advantage?
Well, if we can understand those motivations, if we can really figure out what people want, then we can frame our requests, our arguments, even just our casual conversations in a way that aligns with their goals.
Oh, so you're speaking their language.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Do you have an example?
Yeah. Think about Gary Vaynerchuk. He's a master at this. He spends most of his job interviews figuring out what the candidates want, like what are their dreams, ambitions, ideal career path.
Smart.
And then he shows them how working for his company can help them achieve those things.
He makes it about them.
Exactly.
That's brilliant. And this doesn't have to be as grand as like landing your dream job. This principle applies to all sorts of everyday interactions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so walk me through a more everyday example.
Okay. Let's say you're trying to get buy-in for a new project at work.
Right. Yeah.
Instead of just presenting the facts and figures, you could start by asking your colleagues about their current challenges or their goals for the quarter.
Okay, so you're finding common ground.
Exactly. And then you can frame your project as a solution that helps them overcome those challenges or achieve their goals.
I see. So it suddenly becomes more appealing to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's directly aligned with their needs and aspirations. It's no longer just about your project.
It's about them and how they can benefit. I like it.
It's a win-win.
Okay. So we've talked about the power of appreciation and tapping into people's motivations. But what about just like general likability? How do we make ourselves more likable?
Well, Carnegie actually outlines 6 key principles for becoming, I love this, irresistibly likable.
Mm-hmm.
And these aren't about being phony or putting on a facade. It's about connecting with people in a way that feels authentic and genuine.
Okay, because nobody likes a fake.
Right. So let's break these principles down one by one, starting with the first one, genuine interest.
Genuine interest. What does that mean?
Think about the people you enjoy spending time with.
Okay, I'm thinking.
Are they the ones who are constantly trying to impress you with their accomplishments or their witty anecdotes?
No, not really.
It's usually people who make us feel seen and heard.
The ones who really listen.
Exactly. The ones who ask thoughtful questions, who listen intently, who make us feel like our thoughts and feelings matter. They're genuinely interested in us. They're not just trying to be interesting.
Ah, there's a difference.
Huge difference. And you know what else Carnegie talks about? The power of a smile.
Smile.
He describes a smile as this, little telegram that says, "I like you. You make me happy. I'm glad to see you."
Oh, that's kind of cute.
And you know what? It's true. Even a simple smile, it can instantly change the dynamic of an interaction. It conveys warmth, openness, and approachability.
And it's contagious.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be this, big cheesy grin. Even a subtle smile can make a difference.
I know what you mean, like even on the phone.
Especially on the phone. Because, it changes the tone of your voice.
Totally.
Now, I have to admit, this next one is a personal challenge for me, and I bet it is for a lot of people.
Oh, tell me about it.
Remembering names.
Ugh, yeah, I'm terrible with names.
I know, right? But Carnegie makes a really good point. He says, a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language.
I mean, that's true. It's like you're acknowledging their individuality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you can remember and use someone's name, you're instantly making them feel valued and respected.
Okay. I'm convinced. I need to get better at this. Any tips?
Well, there are all sorts of techniques you can use, like, when you first meet someone, repeat their name back to them, associate it with a visual image maybe, or even create a little rhyme or a story in your head to help you remember.
Okay, I could try that.
Whatever works for you. But the key is to make a conscious effort.
Got it. Make an effort. What else?
Okay, let's talk about mastering conversation. And I want to emphasize this isn't about, like, being the life of the party or having the best jokes. It's about being a good listener.
Oh, so it's more about them than you.
Exactly. It's about encouraging others to open up and share their stories.
Make them feel like they're the most interesting person in the room.
Exactly. And you know what? People, they love to talk about themselves.
Oh, it's true.
It's human nature. So if you can be a good listener, if you can ask open-ended questions and show genuine curiosity, you'll be amazed at how quickly you can build a rapport and deepen those connections.
So resist that urge to interrupt.
Resist the urge to interrupt or to steer the conversation back to yourself.
Right.
Let the other person shine.
Okay, I like that.
Now, here's a pro tip. Find common ground. Instead of trying to force your interests on others, discover what they care about and talk about that.
Okay, so like meet them where they are.
Exactly. And Carnegie, he even uses the example of Theodore Roosevelt, who would spend hours reading up on a guest's interests before a dinner party so he could engage them in a meaningful conversation.
Wow. That's dedication.
Right.
Okay, so we've got genuine interests, smiling, remembering names, listening, and finding common ground. What's the last principle?
The last one. And it's a big one, making people feel important.
Okay, I like that.
This is like the cornerstone of Carnegie's entire philosophy. He says, and I'm going to quote him directly here, there is one all-important law of human conduct. Always make the other person feel important.
Okay, but how do we do that?
Well, it doesn't have to be these grand gestures, It's often the small things that make the biggest difference.
Like what?
Saying thank you, offering a genuine compliment, remembering their birthday, or simply asking about their day and truly listening to their response.
Those are all really simple things.
They are, but they're so powerful. It's about treating everyone with respect, regardless of their position or status.
Right.
And acknowledging their contributions, no matter how small they may seem.
And when people feel valued, they're more likely to be receptive to your ideas, to want to help you, to, become your friend and ally.
Exactly. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from the dangers of criticism to the power of appreciation, from mastering conversation to making people feel important.
Yeah, it's been a lot.
But before we move on to the next segment where we'll be diving into how to handle disagreements and the art of persuasion, I have a question for you.
Okay, hit me.
How do you deal with those inevitable conflicts that arise both at work and in life? Because let's face it, no matter how charming and likable we are, we're going to encounter people who disagree with us, who challenge our ideas, who push our buttons.
That's true. Conflict is inevitable.
It is. So how do we navigate those disagreements in a way that's productive and preserves relationships? Well, stay tuned, because we're about to dive into Carnegie's surprisingly effective strategies for winning arguments without actually arguing.
This should be good. Well, in those moments, it's so tempting to just dig in our heels and, defend our position no matter what.
Oh, yeah, I've definitely been there, ready to battle it out.
Right, and you want to win the argument.
Win at all costs. But Carnegie actually suggests that the best way to win an argument is to avoid it altogether.
Wait, what? How do you win by not arguing?
I know, right? It sounds kind of impossible, especially in a work environment where it feels like everyone's constantly, vying for resources and recognition.
Yeah, it feels like it's a dog-eat-dog world out there.
It does. But why does Carnegie advocate for this whole avoiding arguments thing?
Well, remember when we were talking about how, criticism makes people defensive.
Yeah, that whole beehive analogy.
Exactly. Well, it's the same thing with arguments. When people feel attacked or cornered, their brains just like shut down. They're not listening anymore.
It's like they go into fight or flight mode.
Exactly. And so even if you like have the most logical, well-reasoned argument,
They're not even hearing it.
they're not hearing it. They're too busy like trying to protect themselves.
It's like you said before, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still.
Yeah. You can't force someone to change their mind, no matter how much you argue or debate.
Okay. So if avoiding arguments is the goal, what's the alternative? Like, how do we navigate disagreements in a way that's actually constructive and productive?
Well, Carnegie suggests a really interesting mindset shift.
Okay, tell me.
He says, we should welcome disagreement. See it as an opportunity to learn.
Ooh, I like that. So instead of seeing it as like a threat to our ego
Right.
or like our position, we can approach it with more curiosity. Like, what can I learn from this other perspective?
Exactly. Because we don't have all the answers.
All right.
Right. And there's always more to learn. Even disagreements can lead to new insights, better solutions.
Yeah, makes sense. So it's like, embrace the debate,
Yeah.
but do it in a way that's respectful and open-minded.
Exactly.
Okay. So welcome disagreement. What else?
Well, he also talks about like resisting defensiveness.
Oh, that's a tough one.
I know, because it's natural to want to protect ourselves when we feel attacked, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But defensiveness, it just escalates the conflict. It doesn't help anyone.
So what should we do instead? Like when we feel that defensiveness rising up?
Carnegie says first, take a deep breath, try to calm down. Then really try to listen to the other person's perspective and understand where they're coming from.
It's like putting yourself in their shoes.
Exactly.
Okay, I can try that.
And sometimes like if emotions are running really high, it's best to just like postpone the discussion.
Yeah, table it for later.
Exactly. Suggest, revisiting the issue later when everyone's had a chance to like cool down.
That's good advice. I know I've definitely said things in the heat of the moment that I later regretted.
We all have. It's so easy to do.
It is. Oh. And Carnegie also gives some really great advice on how to handle criticism gracefully. Because even when it's delivered politely, criticism can sting, right?
Absolutely. And one of his best tips is to never say you're wrong.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's tough. But why is it so important to avoid those two little words?
Well, because it's like throwing a verbal punch.
Now.
It just instantly puts the other person on the defensive. It shuts down communication.
And it makes it impossible to have like a productive conversation.
Exactly. It's a blow to their ego.
Yeah.
And no one responds well to that.
Okay, so instead of saying you're wrong, what could we say?
Well, you could try something like, I understand where you're coming from, but I see things a bit differently. Or, I appreciate your perspective. Can you help me understand why you feel that way?
Oh, I like those. You're acknowledging their viewpoint,
Yeah.
but you're not dismissing it outright.
Right. You're inviting a dialogue, a chance to like explore different perspectives, and maybe even find some common ground.
Yeah, I like that. It's more collaborative.
Exactly. And Carnegie, he also suggests that admitting our own mistakes, it can actually make people more receptive to our feedback.
Really? Why is that?
Well, it shows humility. It shows that you're not perfect, that you're willing to acknowledge your own shortcomings.
You're human.
Exactly. And you're open to learning and growing. And it builds trust. When people see that you're not afraid to admit you're wrong, they're more likely to respect you and, be open to your perspective.
It's like you're modeling good behavior.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about how to handle disagreements constructively. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about the art of persuasion.
Ooh, yes. This is a good one.
Because whether you're trying to get buy-in for a new project, pitch a brilliant idea, or even just like convince your partner to try that new restaurant,
Yeah,
the ability to persuade effectively, it's a really valuable skill.
it is. And there's a right way and a wrong way to do it, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And just to be clear, we're not talking about like manipulation or trickery here.
No.
Carnegie's approach to persuasion is all about respect, empathy, and a genuine desire to find solutions that benefit everyone involved.
Okay, I like that. So like win-win situations.
Exactly. So let's dive into some of his key principles for persuasive communication, starting with this one. Always start with a friendly approach.
Okay, that makes sense. You attract more bees with honey.
Right. Even if you're dealing with someone who's angry or upset or just resistant to your ideas.
Yeah, you don't want to pour fuel on the fire.
Exactly. Approaching the conversation with a friendly and respectful demeanor, it can make a huge difference. It's like that saying, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because when you approach someone with, like, aggression or confrontation, they're just going to put up their defenses and shut down.
Yeah, they're not going to hear anything you have to say.
Exactly. But when you're friendly and approachable, they're more likely to be open to, what you have to say.
Okay, so start with friendly. What's next?
Carnegie also talks about the importance of getting the other person saying yes as early as possible in the conversation.
Oh, interesting. Why is that?
Well, it's about building momentum towards agreement. Find points of common ground, even if they're small, and get the other person nodding their head, saying yes.
Okay, so you're like building a foundation of agreement.
Exactly. It's like creating this positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
When someone starts saying yes, they're more likely to keep saying yes.
Oh, I see. And this actually ties into another principle he talks about, right? Letting the other person do a lot of the talking.
Yes. This is one of my favorites. It's so simple, but so powerful.
Yeah, I've noticed that when I let people talk, they tend to be more receptive to what I have to say.
Exactly. Because remember, people, they love to talk about themselves.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
And so by being a good listener, we can gather valuable information. We can build rapport.
You make them feel heard and understood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes, the best way to solve a problem is to just let the other person talk it through.
They might even come up with the solution themselves.
They often do.
Yeah.
It's amazing. When we give people the space to express themselves fully, they often, find their own way to a resolution.
Oh, okay. That's powerful stuff. What else?
Okay, this next principle is particularly clever. Let the other person feel that the idea is theirs.
Ooh, sneaky. So how do we do that?
Well, instead of, presenting your solution as this brilliant stroke of genius,
Oh, right.
you subtly guide the conversation in a way that makes the other person feel like they came up with the idea.
Ah, so you're like planting a seed.
Exactly. And when people feel like they own an idea, they're much more invested in seeing it through.
They have skin in the game. Okay, I like this one. It's good. What else have we got?
Okay, this one goes hand in hand with that last one. See things from the other person's perspective.
Okay, so empathy. We're back to empathy.
Exactly.
Right.
It requires empathy, imagination,
Right.
a willingness to step outside our own assumptions and biases.
Because we all have those.
We do. And Carnegie, he gives some really great examples of how just reframing a request in terms of the other person's needs and desires,
Yeah.
it can make all the difference.
Give me an example. I love a good example.
Okay, so imagine a father who wants his son to help with the dishes, right? Instead of just ordering him to do it, he could say something like, hey, if we can get these dishes done quickly, we'll have more time to watch that movie you wanted to see.
Oh, so you're aligning your request with their motivation.
Exactly. Or imagine a teacher who wants a student to participate more in class. Instead of just saying, you need to speak up more, she could say something like, I know it can be scary to speak up in front of the class, but I believe in you and I think you have really valuable insights to share. How about we start with just one question per class?
Oh, okay. So you're meeting them where they are. You're acknowledging their fears.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And by aligning your request with the other person's motivations, you're much more likely to get their buy-in.
It's a win-win.
It is. And it shows that you care about their needs and perspectives.
Yeah.
Which, it builds trust and strengthens the relationship.
Okay, that makes sense.
Now, speaking of building trust, Carnegie emphasizes the importance of empathy, especially when you're dealing with people who are upset or angry.
Yeah, that's when it's really important to be understanding.
He suggests this like a really powerful phrase that can be incredibly effective in diffusing tension.
Okay, what's the phrase?
I don't blame you one iota for feeling the way you do. If I were you, I'd no doubt feel exactly the same way.
Wow, that's powerful.
It's like you're acknowledging their feelings without judgment.
You're validating their emotions.
Exactly. You're creating space for empathy and understanding.
And sometimes that's all it takes to de-escalate a situation.
Exactly. Okay, now let's talk about appealing to nobler motives.
Nobler motives. What does that mean?
This is about framing your requests in a way that connects with people's values, their ideals, their aspirations.
Oh, so it's like appealing to their better angels.
Exactly. It's about moving beyond just pure self-interest.
Right.
And tapping into that desire that we all have to contribute, to make a difference, to be part of something bigger than ourselves.
I like that. So it's like, instead of saying, can you handle 5 more client calls this week? You could say something like, I think it would be fair if we all rotated who handles the client calls. That way, everyone gets an equal share of the workload and no one feels overwhelmed.
Exactly. You're appealing to their sense of fairness, their desire to be a team player.
Yeah. Okay. And what about when you really need to sell an idea, like get people excited about it?
Well, Carnegie suggests that sometimes the best way to get someone on board with an idea is to dramatize it.
Dramatize it, like put on a show.
Kind of. It's about bringing your ideas to life, making them vivid and memorable. He uses this example of a salesman who was trying to convince a store owner to stock his new line of cleaning products.
Okay.
And instead of just listing the features and benefits, he poured some dirt on the floor and then demonstrated how quickly and easily his product cleaned it up.
Oh, okay. So show, don't tell. I get it.
Exactly. It's not just telling, it's showing.
And it makes it more memorable.
Absolutely. And finally, Carnegie suggests throwing down a challenge. He argues that sometimes the best motivation comes from within.
Okay. Like a little friendly competition.
He tells this great story about Charles Schwab, who was trying to motivate a group of steelworkers to increase their productivity. And instead of offering them like a bonus or a raise, he simply chalked a big 6 on the factory floor.
A 6? What was the 6 for?
It represented the number of units they had produced that day.
Okay.
And the next day, the night shift came in. They saw that big 6 on the floor, and they immediately wanted to outdo the day shift.
Of course.
So they raised the 6 and replaced it with a 7.
That's awesome.
And just like that, this friendly competitor was born, and productivity went through the roof.
It's like they motivated themselves.
Exactly. It's a great example of how, tapping into people's intrinsic motivation.
Right. Their desire to excel, to contribute.
It can be far more effective than relying on, external rewards or punishments.
So let me get this straight. We've talked about how to handle disagreements, how to persuade others, even how to motivate people, all grounded in respect, understanding, and genuine connection.
Exactly. And now we're going to shift our focus to the realm of leadership.
Oh, I'm ready for this.
Because whether you're managing a team, leading a project, or simply striving to be a more influential presence in your workplace, Carnegie's insights offer invaluable guidance on how to lead effectively, how to inspire others, and how to create a more positive and productive work environment.
Sounds good.
And to do that, he actually outlines 9 key principles for effective leadership.
Okay, 9 principles. I'm taking notes.
And these principles build upon everything we've discussed so far.
All that good stuff.
So, are you ready to step into a leadership role? Or at least, level up your current leadership skills?
I'm all in.
Great. Then let's dive into these 9 principles and explore how they can transform the way you lead, inspire, and influence others.
Bring it on. All right, so we're ready to unpack these 9 principles of leadership.
Let's do it. And, we've touched on this one before, but it's worth repeating because it's so foundational. Begin with praise and appreciation.
Yeah, it's like setting the stage for a more positive interaction.
Exactly. Everyone loves to hear what they're doing well. Especially when it's specific and genuine, it just creates a more positive, receptive atmosphere.
It makes people more open to feedback.
Exactly. And especially when you're about to give some constructive criticism, which can be, a little bit tough to receive.
Yeah, no one likes to hear what they're doing wrong.
Right. So think about it. Which would you respond to better? This report needs a lot of work. Or, hey, I really appreciate all the thorough research you did for this report. The data analysis is excellent. Now let's talk about how we can make the presentation even stronger.
Oh, the second one for sure. It feels a lot more encouraging.
Right. And it acknowledges the effort. It highlights the strengths before addressing, areas for improvement.
Like you're not just tearing them down.
Exactly. And, speaking of offering that constructive criticism, remember Carnegie's advice about indirect criticism?
Oh, yeah. Like that but versus and technique.
Yes. Instead of saying, you did a great job on this presentation, BUT, you say, you did a great job on this presentation, Andy, if we incorporated more visuals.
It's so much more positive.
It is, and it just keeps the focus on, growth and improvement rather than dwelling on the shortcomings.
It feels more collaborative, too.
Absolutely. Okay, this next principle can be tough for some leaders to swallow, but it's crucial. Admitting your own mistakes.
Yeah, it's hard to admit when we're wrong.
I know. It can feel really vulnerable, right? But it's actually a sign of strength.
It shows humility.
Humility, authenticity, and a willingness to learn and grow. And you know what? When leaders are open about their own mistakes, it actually creates a safer environment.
Yeah, people feel more comfortable taking risks.
Exactly. And they feel safer, owning up to their own missteps.
Because they know they won't be punished for it.
Exactly. And it also builds trust, right? because it shows that you're not perfect.
You don't expect anyone else to be perfect either.
Exactly. Okay. So now think about the way you communicate your expectations. Do you tend to phrase things more as orders or suggestions?
That's a good question. I probably default to orders sometimes, especially, when deadlines are looming.
Yeah, I think we all do. But Carnegie suggests that leaders should phrase their requests more as suggestions than orders.
Okay. So instead of saying, get this report to me by Friday, it would be better to say, hey, do you think you could have this report to me by Friday?
Exactly. It's a small shift, but it makes a big difference. It empowers people, gives them a sense of ownership, and it also encourages them to think more creatively about solutions.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. It's less about dictating and more about collaborating.
Exactly. And this ties into another important principle, letting others save face.
Yeah, because we all mess up sometimes.
We do. And it can be really, really demoralizing to be publicly called out or shamed for those mistakes.
Yeah, it's humiliating.
It is. And a good leader, they understand the importance of preserving their team members' dignity and self-respect.
So if someone makes a mistake, you talk to them about it privately.
Exactly. You address the issue privately, respectfully, focusing on solutions. You're not blaming or shaming.
It's about learning from mistakes, not punishing people for them.
Exactly. And it creates this culture where people feel safe to, admit their mistakes and learn from them.
Without being afraid of getting in trouble.
Exactly. And you know what? When people feel safe, they're more likely to take risks, to innovate, to really bring their best selves to work.
Makes sense. Okay, so what's next?
Okay, let's talk about giving heartfelt praise when it's deserved.
Everyone loves a good compliment.
We do. But this is about more than just saying good job. It's about being specific, acknowledging the effort involved, and letting people know how their contributions have made a difference.
So instead of saying, great work on that presentation, you might say, I was really impressed with how clearly you articulated the key points in that presentation. It was engaging, informative, and the client loved it.
Exactly. Now, this next principle is really interesting. Give people a good reputation to live up to.
I've never thought about it like that.
It's almost like this self-fulfilling prophecy. If you express confidence in someone's abilities, they're more likely to, rise to the occasion.
So you're giving them something to strive for.
Exactly. If you want someone to take on a leadership role, you could say something like, I've been so impressed with your initiative and your ability to motivate others. I think you have the potential to be a great leader.
You're planting a seed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And by affirming their strengths and expressing your belief in them, you're empowering them to, step up.
I like it. It's very positive. Okay, what about when people are feeling overwhelmed? What can leaders do to help?
Well, remember that principle about encouraging and simplifying.
Oh, right. Make things easier.
Exactly. And this is crucial for leaders. Break down complex tasks into smaller, more manageable steps.
Okay.
Provide clear instructions, guidance, and offer support and encouragement along the way.
So it's like you're creating a roadmap for success.
Exactly. And you're being there, to cheer them on every step of the way.
I like it. What's the final principle?
Okay. The most important principle of all, and this really brings it all together.
I'm ready.
Make people glad to do what you suggest.
Okay, so it's not about forcing them.
No, it's about inspiring them.
Yeah.
It goes back to that core concept of understanding, people's motivations and aligning your goals with their desires.
So framing requests in a way that benefits them.
Exactly. Showing them how their contributions make a difference.
And creating that sense of shared purpose.
Exactly. It's about making people feel like valued members of a team, working towards a common goal, not just, cogs in a machine.
Right. They feel like they're part of something bigger.
Exactly. And you know what? When people feel valued, respected, inspired, they are capable of incredible things.
Okay, so there you have it. 9 powerful principles for becoming a more effective, inspiring leader. And, the best part is these principles, they're not just for people with fancy titles or corner offices.
Right. They're for anyone who wants to have a positive impact, who wants to influence others, who wants to create, a more collaborative, fulfilling environment.
Exactly. Whether you're leading a team, managing a project, or just trying to be a more positive and influential person in your everyday life, these principles, they can really help you achieve your goals and build stronger relationships.
And, even small changes in our behavior can have a ripple effect. It can create a more positive, productive environment for everyone.
Absolutely.
So as you go about your day, consider how you can apply these principles. How can you express appreciation more genuinely? How can you handle those disagreements with more grace and understanding?
How can you inspire the people around you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, leadership, it's not about wielding power or demanding obedience. It's about earning respect, inspiring others, and making a positive difference.
It's about leading with heart.
And the best part, anyone can develop these skills.
With practice and patience.
Exactly. So keep learning, keep connecting, keep leading with heart. And we'll catch you next time for another deep dive.
Sounds good.
Thank you for joining. This is the Practical World Podcast.